Okay, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Wayne Floriani with MineAfrica, and I'm also on the board of the Canada-Africa Chamber of Business. It's a pleasure to welcome you here today. MineAfrica has been doing business investment seminars, mining investment seminars, training, and business development programs for African governments in Canada for over 20 years. Last October, we had the pleasure of doing our first ever Nigeria-Canada Business Investment Summit in partnership with Leadership and Governance Canada. As a result of that, and the over 200 participants that we had at it, we've launched a new webinar series, of which today is the first one, where we'll be focusing on talking about trends, opportunities, challenges in doing business with and in Nigeria, between Nigeria and Canada. This is the first one in our series. We will be moving on to other general topics, financing, risk profiles, and then different industry sectors, mining, oil and gas, arts and culture, ICT, etc. This will all culminate then in our second annual Nigeria-Canada Business Summit in October 2021, all things being equal, re-COVID and so on. What I'd like to do now is just ask Sam Adewale, who's the President of Leadership and Governance Canada and our partner in today's program and series, to say a few words. Sam?
On behalf of Leadership and Governance Canada, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar series on Canada-Nigeria business investment. Most especially, I'd like to welcome our panelists for taking the time to join us. I would also like to welcome and thank our sponsors for supporting us in making this webinar a success. This webinar is the first of the series to kickstart our biannual Canada-Nigeria Investment Summit. As we look forward to October 2021, there is a need to foster a more cordial and solid relationship between the investors in Canada and Nigeria. We sincerely hope that this will pave way for that strong tie. Once again, welcome you all and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Sam. In addition to our partners, our major partners, Global Affairs Canada, the Canada-Africa Chamber of Business, we have our technology partner, the Schulich Executive Education Centre, and I'd like to ask Claudia Mueller from that organization to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Wayne, and welcome everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm speaking on behalf of the Schulich Executive Education Centre. I lead our mining programming at the center, but our center offers a number of different educational activities around open enrollment and custom solutions in leadership training and a number of subject areas in business and many industry-focused programs. We have a new partnership with MineAfrica that we're really delighted about. Our partnership is focused on delivering co-branded educational and training programs focused on the natural resource sector internationally. We think this partnership will be of great value to the natural resource sector, and we are very, very excited to bring together our expertise in training programs and the rich experience that MineAfrica has in the sector and exploring opportunities that will bring to us. So thank you again. We're very excited to be working with you, and we're looking forward to meeting many of our participants in the future. Thank you.
Well, Wayne, Sam, and Claudia, thank you very much. And thank you to each of your organizations for your leadership. My name is Gareth Bloor. I'm president of the Canada-Africa Chamber of Business, and it's my great pleasure to moderate through this exciting session we have coming up. It is no surprise, before we go into our three panelists, that both MineAfrica, Leadership and Governance, as well as Schulich have played a key role in the Chamber's evolution as a 26-year-old organization. And I want to particularly recognize Wayne, Sam, and Bruce Shapiro, former president of the Chamber. I think the work that you're doing exemplifies the ongoing engagement with the continent, particularly the enormous economy of Nigeria. Today we have three incredible speakers: Adeshina Emmanuel, who serves as Director of Investment Promotion at the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission, followed by Ryan Ward, Canada's Deputy High Commissioner to Nigeria, as well as the Regional Senior Trade Commissioner for Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, and Sao Tome and Principe. And then finally, we'll conclude with Todd Burns, who serves as President and Chief Executive Officer of Cypher International, a company doing some fantastic things in the Nigerian market and beyond. After each of these presentations, we'll go into a Q&A, and please feel free to begin in the Q&A box on your screen at any particular point. Should you see a question that you'd like to pose already asked, feel free to upvote, and we'll get a clear sense of the questions of most interest to each of you as our delegates and participants today. Without further ado, it is my great pleasure to kick off with our first speaker for this particular session, Adeshina Emmanuel, Director of Investment Promotion at the Nigeria Investment and Promotion Commission. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Garrett. Thank you, fellow panelists and attendees on this event. It's my pleasure to be here again. I was in Canada last year to make a presentation on why Canada and where a lot of investment opportunities in Nigeria were listed. Fortunately, we could not make it physically this time, but it's still a good opportunity to talk to you. Let me start by saying that Canada still remains one of the countries of investment interest to Nigeria. Sometime 2 years ago in NIPC, we developed strategic countries of focus for investment, and Canada is one of the 20 countries of strategic importance to Nigeria, and it still remains as such. The investment opportunities in Nigeria still abound. In actual fact, there are even more, because every challenge brings its own opportunities. There are even more opportunities now with the COVID, the pandemic that has made it more, made everybody to realize the fact that there is a need to attract investment in order to have a sustainable economy. When COVID started, it was an health issue, and then suddenly it went on to economic issue, and the economy of Nigeria was threatened. Nigeria is a country that depends mostly on oil revenue. There was a fall in the price of oil, and then the government revenue went down, and of course it's brought about a ripple of ripple effects. And so the first thing the government did was to set up an economic sustainability committee that is headed by the vice president. And this committee is actually addressing all the issues, and it's realized that we need to do a lot to improve the investment more than ever before in order to attract both foreign and domestic investment. So one of the major objectives of this committee is to stimulate the economy by preventing businesses from failing, and then also to be able to attract additional investment. I said it last year when I made the presentation about the investment opportunities in Nigeria and areas where Canada has a strong comparative advantage. There are also areas that Nigeria is actually interested in attracting investments. But before then, I think I also need to restate the fact that the ease of doing business in Nigeria is getting better, even with what we are going through now. We know that as of last year, Nigeria moved from 146 in the World Bank ranking of ease of doing business to 131. Nigeria was also said to be one of the 10 most improved economies as at last year. And the government is still doing a lot to improve, to ensure that by the time the next edition is done, that Nigeria will move further in terms of the ease of doing business. What government has put in place now, the Economic Sustainability Committee, they have proposed several key projects where I believe investors can invest in. One is massive agricultural program. Government wants to embark on massive agricultural program. So agric, of course, we know is Nigeria has advantage in the area of agric. Unfortunately, most of it is in crop production. and not in processing. But now government realized that to have a sustainable economy, of course, it's not as if we've not realized this, but it has become more necessary to move from crop production into agro-processing. Another is the extensive public works and road construction program that is going on to ensure that there is an improvement in infrastructure. And then there's also mass housing program, a mass housing program. So there's room for real estates in Nigeria now. I think it is expected that to deliver up to 300,000 houses annually. The gap in terms of housing in Nigeria is about 17 million. So there's massive investment opportunity in that sector, in that area. And then another one is installation of solar home systems. Solar renewable energy is one key area now that government is focusing on. And of course, there are several incentives to encourage investment in renewable energy. Another one is the promotion of domestic gas utilization. Domestic gas utilization. So investors are also welcome into the gas subsector. Of course, digital economy. We know Nigerians, we have a lot of Nigerians who are into IT, and the government is trying to foster a culture of innovation and to create a wide variety of technology and ICT jobs. So investors are also welcome in the digital economy. Other areas in the health sector, health and education. What happens with this COVID is that it has actually brought out the weakness in Nigeria's health system. People in the past, those who could afford it, used to travel abroad when they have issues, but with COVID now, everybody is somehow restrained, and so there's a need to improve. And government is looking at making health to be not only to be accessible, but to be affordable by increasing the number of people that can benefit from the National Health Insurance Scheme, so that they can afford to pay for their health services. So I think it is an area that investors should consider. And of course, mining has always been something that we have in common with Canada, and the government is addressing the issue of artisanal miners to create sanity in the mining sector. So these are areas where Nigeria would want to see Canadian investment. And then let me just round up by talking about NIPC. The Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission is the agency of government that was set up to encourage, promote, and coordinate investment in Nigeria. We always advise investors that they should make NIPC their first point of call when they want to invest in Nigeria. The commission actually administers incentives, such as the pioneer status incentive, is a tax incentive for activities that qualify, that are in the priority areas. Virtually all the sectors I mentioned qualify for the pioneer status incentive of 3 years minimum and 5 years minimum for investors in those areas. And apart from that, NIPC also renders investment facilitation services. We do we give investors hand holding, those who want to invest in Nigeria, to make sure that we assist you in navigating through the investment process to ensure that there is no undue delay in the starting your business. Time will not permit me to mention many things that NIPC has put in place to assist investors, but definitely there are a lot that investors can benefit by working through NIPC. I don't know if I still have some time, but as I conclude, I will also want to reiterate the fact again that Canada is actually Nigeria's one of those countries that are very important to Nigeria. And we want to encourage investors to come in. Those who are already existing, one of the things we are doing is to make sure that we retain existing investors by making sure we work with them, that we render aftercare service, so that So those who are coming in are assured that once you come in, we are not going to abandon you. We will also work with you to ensure that we retain you in Nigeria. To ensure that there's safety of your investment as well as safety of your lives as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for an incredibly comprehensive outline to some of the major industry areas and opportunities in a vibrant market like Nigeria. And I already see some interest in the Q&A based on some of the comments that you've made. So thank you for kicking us off and setting the tone, but also for the work you've done so far with Canadian companies, and no doubt that those you're set to work with in the weeks and months ahead. Well, our next speaker representing the Government of Canada is Ryan Ward, Deputy High Commissioner, as well as Senior Trade Commissioner, both to Nigeria and other West African markets. Ryan Ward, thank you for the work you're doing, the passion and the energy we've seen you bring on previous webinars, during previous meetings. Welcome, and the floor is now yours.
Great, thanks, Gareth. Hello, everyone. I got to start out by saying that despite all the uncertainty created by the global pandemic, I'm actually still here on the ground in Lagos with my team. We're doing our best to support Canadian companies despite our overall reduced footprint across the region. I'm actually the only Canadian trade officer in all of West and Central Africa for the time being, but I've stayed behind because the work is still important, even in the face of coronavirus, and we're still dedicated to helping Canadian companies find success throughout the region. So I'm happy to be here and happy to keep doing the work. Promoting trade and investment relations between Canada and Nigeria is a priority for our government as a whole. As Canada's second largest trading partner in sub-Saharan Africa, as well as the largest investor into Canada from the region, Nigeria is already one of Canada's most important economic partners in all of sub-Saharan Africa. I've got to say that I've seen firsthand that Nigeria holds plenty of untapped opportunities for Canadian companies. Nigeria's entrepreneurial population means that there's a natural proclivity towards new innovative solutions. And this is really clearly visible in the country's booming tech industry and its large ecosystem of startups. To facilitate increased trade with Nigeria, the Trade Commissioner Service, or TCS, that I work with, provides Canadian businesses and educational institutions with on-the-ground intelligence, connections to vetted contacts, access to partnership opportunities, and practical market advice. Through the recent launch of the Trade Diversification Strategy, Canada is committed to invest 1.1 billion Canadian dollars to help our companies access new markets. Within this policy, I see new attention being paid to non-traditional markets for Canadian companies, and this extends to Africa and hopefully Nigeria as well. From a practical perspective, Canada's focus in Nigeria is on education, oil and gas, ICT, clean technologies, and the creative industry sector. Starting with education, our work in the sector here in Nigeria is probably the most visible with the EduCanada fairs that we organize. And they're actually the largest ones in all of sub-Saharan Africa. Beyond this, we've actually seen an increasing number of Nigerian schools adopting the Ontario Secondary School curriculum. And the interest on behalf of Nigerian parents in that program is indicative of a longer term their kids into the Canadian post-secondary education system. In Canada, the work that we've done is basically supporting the aspirations of Nigerian students and the kind of vision that their parents have for them. We currently have over 12,000 Nigerian students studying in Canada, which makes Nigeria one of Canada's top 10 source countries for foreign students. Given Nigeria's position as Africa's largest oil exporter, we see a lot of potential for increased collaboration between our companies in this sector. With Canadian capabilities and equipment as well as training, there's a lot of space for mutual benefit. To making the connections that will help turn these opportunities into real actionable contracts. Just last June, actually, I led a delegation of, I think, about 100 local businesses and government officials to the Global Petroleum Show held in Calgary. And we've seen some concrete outcomes from that visit. Obviously, that show's not happening this year, but at least in the physical way. But when that starts again, we hope to have a good delegation going to Calgary next year. ICT is another priority sector for the Trade Commissioner Service, and we're focused on connecting Canadian business with Nigerian telecommunications, software, and fintech companies. The TCS has been involved with several notable Nigeria-Canada tech startups and their successes through our work in sharing opportunities from Canadian tech accelerators with local fintech startups. This has resulted in international partnerships and investment. Nigeria obviously has vast renewable resource potential in both hydro and solar. And a few Canadian companies are already active in this space, including Manitoba Hydro, Canadian Solar, and JCM Power. And I'm really encouraging Canadian companies to engage more proactively in the off-grid renewable market, given the scale of the opportunity to connect underserved local communities that aren't linked with the national grid for the power supply. Other Canadian companies like AESP Energy and M1 Energy Solutions have also been active in the renewable energy market, working closely with the Nigerian government and development partners. In 2019, the Commissioner Service team here in Nigeria launched a virtual seminar series to connect Canadian colleges and institutes with Nigerian companies in energy and oil and gas to address the gaps identified around technical and vocational skills development. These seminars have served to spark discussions between Nigerian companies and Canadian institutes and have given Canadian organizations the opportunity to learn more about the Nigerian market directly from potential partners and collaborators. And this virtual approach is something that we really plan to take advantage of over the next year. Given that travel is really being impacted by COVID, we really want to take advantage of the telecommunications infrastructure that we have in place to facilitate these connections and make sure that as the restrictions on travel lift, that we've got a running start to get things moving again. Many Canadian companies looking to export to Nigeria or invest in the region aren't actually aware of the barriers to market entry, prevailing regulations, and cultural norms. So one of the functions that we play as the TCS here is to bridge the gap by working with Canadian companies as partners to help them assess their potential in the market, to provide them with information necessary to make good decisions on how to enter the market. And this includes offering market intelligence and an overview of the competitive landscape. So it's really, Canadian companies are our partners. Work with them as an extension to kind of help them understand how to enter and find success in the Nigerian market. I would say that one of the most valuable ways that we support Canadian companies looking to do business here is by introducing them to kind of key vetted business contacts and qualified local contacts who are key players and decision makers in Nigerian companies of interest. We find that our on-the-ground knowledge and personal connection with these contacts not only provides a bit of assurance to the Canadian companies, but increases their uptake in actually kind of getting over their potential initial fear of working in Nigeria and helping them to understand why they should really be here. These connections have actually often yielded promising partnerships and have helped Canadian companies to maximize their opportunities and led to the facilitation of economic outcomes. So we've seen real results from the work that we've done in this area. We also help organizations resolve market access problems and other business challenges, including issues tied to custom clearance and shipping, contract bidding, insurance coverage, and more. I actually want to step back for a second from all this talk about the sectors that we work in and say that, while I do manage the trade program, the real on-the-ground work is actually done by my team of local trade commissioners. So what they really bring to the table is their in-depth sector knowledge and their ongoing network of contacts. I'm only here for 2-3 years. They're here for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so they have a depth of knowledge and a strength with their network of contacts that I simply can't bring to the table from coming from outside. And so what this has done is enabled our TCS team to effectively support Canadian companies interested in doing business in Nigeria. So if you're a Canadian company who's watching the webinar today and you reach out to me after this session is over, I'm actually going to be connecting you with one of our local experts to help you figure out if Nigeria is right for you, and if it is, what we can actually do to help. So in closing, doing business in Nigeria is not without its challenges, and we're aware of this. However, there's a lot of opportunities for trade investment between Nigeria and Canada, despite the impact of COVID-19 on the global economy. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to help Canadian companies find the right partners, opportunities, and approaches to help them succeed here. If we can do this, we know it will lead to more investment and will help create jobs and provide services for Nigerians. So thank you for joining the webinar and taking the first step in understanding you should be thinking about exploring the Nigerian market. And I look forward to hearing from you both in the Q&A section and after the webinar about how I and my TCS team can support your success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy High Commissioner. And I've certainly had the pleasure of engaging with some members of your team in Lagos and elsewhere, and certainly a wonderful group that you have with in-depth on-the-ground knowledge. So thank you for your leadership in that regard. Well, we've heard a bit about the sectors, we've heard about the incentives and a range of other sources of support for doing business in Nigeria. We move on now to Todd Burns, who's going to share what it is as a company doing business, invested in the country and operating across Nigeria. Todd Burns, President and Chief Executive Officer of Cypher Environmental. Over to you and welcome.
Thanks, Gareth, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you're located. Well, as they say, they save the best for last, but I won't comment on any of that, of course. Pause for laughter. Okay, now, So I was really actually excited to hear Adeshina mention roads in his conversation, because that's what our major focus is on. So actually, I'll talk a little bit about the company and what our offerings are and what we're doing in Nigeria first, just so you all know, who we are and get some context about the company. And then I'll talk a bit about why we chose Nigeria and what we're doing there, and maybe a bit of advice for other suppliers that are looking to get into that market. And you know what? I'm gonna have to turn my ringer off. So there we go. So I don't get interrupted again. Okay, so Cypher Environmental, we're 100% Canadian owned, based in Winnipeg, Canada, and we have distributors in probably roughly 50 countries around the world now. So we manufacture everything here, and we ship through our distribution network globally. So our real focus is on, I guess you would call it, environmental infrastructure. So we focus on roads and really helping to reduce the environmental footprint and operating costs for our clients. So we are multi-sectoral. We do work, so even though our major focus is on roads, we're working in the mining sector, of course, which I guess is why we're here today. So a very, very big footprint in the mining sector, but we work with municipal governments, provincial governments, and forestry, oil and gas. So certainly another nice tie to Nigeria there. They all have a large large private industrial road network. And so, we have solutions to help them save money and reduce their environmental footprint. So I'll just talk a bit about the products, and then I'll talk a bit more about Nigeria. But so the company all started around a product called Earthsign, which is a stabilizer for high clay content material, which you have an abundance of in Nigeria. And so, clay is nice and hard when it's dry, but when it gets wet, it swells and it loses all of its engineering properties. And so typically it's thought of as a marginal engineering input or even a waste material, and you have to either get rid of it and replace it with something better, or mix in a whole bunch of something else to stabilize it. So typical would be aggregate or cement, both very expensive, and you need to use very high concentrations of it. Our Earthsign technology is a highly concentrated liquid. 1 liter will treat 33 cubic meters of compacted soil. So highly concentrated. So for, let's say, a kilometer, if we were just, for the ease of math, let's say for a kilometer of secondary road, like you would have in Nigeria, you're only talking about 40 liters of product. And so you're turning your clay soils, these are little pucks, clay soils into, quite hard. These are just stabilized clay samples we've done in the lab into a road like that. So huge implications in the rainy season that you have there in Nigeria, whether it's in the mining sector or elsewhere. And then, of course, if you don't have that high clay content material, we have another product that specifically treats roads for dust. So you guys have all seen unpaved roads before, and they're quite dusty. Now, usually people are either using oil or salt. Both are quite toxic to the environment. Ours is a totally environmentally friendly alternative, and it's used. Both products are applied with standard equipment, so water trucks, graders, stuff that typical governments or road agencies or mining companies will already have on hand. So no specialization required in the equipment used to apply our products. So at the end of the day, for example, you talk about Nigeria, which has a big rainy season. You also have a big dry season, and so water consumption is quite critical, and of course is in a shortage in the dry season. And so typically, if you're not using oil or salt, you're using water. And so it's a huge waste of water. And so we give our clients the ability to save a substantial amount of water in dust control. Now, why we chose Nigeria, it's in terms of population, it's the largest country in Africa. And ultimately, as a result, they have a lot of roads. So I've seen studies suggesting there's almost 200,000 kilometers of roads in Nigeria, only 60,000 of which are paved. So that gives us a huge opportunity to improve the infrastructure in Nigeria. Adeshina mentioned roads. So of course, that's our bread and butter, and that's an area where we can really help the country save money. With the big focus with IFIs, such as the African Development Bank and the World Bank, there's a lot of opportunities to work with them on infrastructure improvement projects. And I should point out, I talked a lot about distributors. I'd be remiss without mentioning, of course, we do have a great distributor in Nigeria called Finaxel. So I know their CEO and maybe one or two other team members are joining us in the webinar today. The CEO's name is Kelechi Agada. Kelechi and his team would be more than happy to communicate with anybody from Nigeria about opportunities to collaborate there. Yeah, but ultimately, Nigeria, I think, for years has been known as an oil producer. I think they're in the top 15 in the world in terms of oil production, and Ryan commented on the ties we have between Canada and Nigeria in that respect. You know, I think the government these days is doing a lot in Nigeria to diversify and actually reduce the dependency on oil, so supporting other industries such as mining. And so all of these require infrastructure and roads to be developed. So we just see Nigeria, with the amount of development, with the way the economy is heading, as just as a great opportunity to grow. And as Brian also pointed out, I mean, you know, there's a lot of ambitious entrepreneurial folk in Nigeria. So of course, you know, open to innovation. I find developing countries such as Nigeria and other countries in Africa are actually more open to we offer, because they are innovative, they are new. Whereas here in North America, or in Canada in particular, there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape we have to get through in order to introduce our product to a new customer or a new project, or get the approval from the government. Whereas there's a greater demand in Nigeria to save money, do something new, and do things better. Whereas here, I think people are sort of more willing to just do things the old way, the way they learn things in school. So I just think the opportunity in a developing market that just needs that rapid infrastructure development, like Nigeria, was a natural fit for us. But ultimately, you know, there is some corruption in Nigeria. So for us as a Canadian company that doesn't adhere to that, there is a very long sales cycle. So I mean, you have to be willing to stick it out for the long term. You're not going to introduce a new technology and make massive or major sales overnight. So certainly something to be cognizant of. And of course, also in finding the right partner. I mean, because there are a lot of entrepreneurial or ambitious people there that maybe don't have the right experience or knowledge of the industry. You know, there's probably going to be a lot of people, if you're a supplier interested in getting into the market, willing or wanting to cooperate with you. And the $1 million question is, you know, can you find the right partner that's going to stick it out in the long term and really represent you and adhere to your code of best practices? So ultimately, you know, I'm not sure how I'm doing for time, but we see Nigeria as a great opportunity. We've done some projects there already. We've worked with Sobe Farm, Lagos State Public Works asphalt plant, the Olam rice airstrip, and in terms of the similarities between Nigeria and Canada, for example, we're working very hard at developing the north here in Canada, and a major part of that is airstrips. And so the fact that we have a great reference case study in Nigeria with the Olam rice airstrip, it just starts to show you the similarities in the markets that we're targeting. So we've got a lot of other ongoing projects, and we're just excited to continue to see how we can develop a mutually beneficial relationship with Finaxel and, you know, between Canada and Nigeria.
Well, thank you very, very much, Todd. And very exciting to hear of some of the opportunities you've identified, but also your experiences taking up those key opportunities. Well, we've got just over 20 minutes, closer on 25 minutes for Q&A. So thank you for so incredibly eloquently sticking to time, each one of our star panelists with us today. I'm going to kick off with questions based on the popularity of the questions we're receiving. And first of all, can we get the contact information of the presenters? There will be a follow-up email, so certainly the opportunity to connect will be there. And Ryan and his team are incredible, in particular, at following up for some of the connections you may be looking for. Around the issue of water and wastewater in Nigeria, there's a question from Brian Dodo in Kingston around what sort of opportunities are available there. I know there has been some activity by the Trade Commissioner Service with an upcoming webinar along the lines of this topic. Perhaps I'll ask Adeshina to touch on that to start, and then we can have you, Ryan, weigh in, and Todd, feel free to do the same thing.
Yeah, thank you very much. There are massive opportunities in the waste to wealth sector in Nigeria. We know that Nigeria, especially Lagos and Kano, has a massive wastes, which government is now trying to take advantage of it to convert into energy. So there's an opportunity to convert waste to energy in Nigeria. But I must point out the fact that the technology is not yet advanced, and so we need countries like Canada with advanced technology to come and invest in this sector, because we know that there's a problem, and we know what needs to be done, but we don't have the wherewithal to be able to do it. So, and I think this is an opportunity. There will always be waste. There will always be raw materials, and we know that Nigeria has there's a huge gap in energy demand, between demand and the supply. So, I think one of the renewable areas of renewable energy that government would encourage is waste to energy. And then generally for energy sector, particularly renewable energy, there are several incentives that government has put in place. So with regards to that question, I think if there are anything that NIBC could do to assist any investor who is interested, I would like a further discussion on this after this meeting. My email can be shared to the attendees for us to discuss further.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Sure. Gareth, as you mentioned, there's actually a water and wastewater seminar going on. And it's actually right now at the same time as this webinar. So my expert on water and wastewater is actually presenting as part of that webinar. So I'm not going to be able to speak to specific opportunities, but I've seen a number of the questions in the Q&A that are kind of looking for sector-specific information. So rather than talking about the specific opportunities for water and wastewater or TVET or any of the other sectors that people are asking about, I'd rather kind of step back and kind of talk about how we work as the Trade Commissioner Service. So effectively, the Trade Commissioner Service here in Nigeria, we're here to support Canadian companies looking for opportunities here. But what we do is we really kind of sit between two sets of information. We sit between information on local opportunities and Canadian capabilities. And so we work kind of based on both of those. So if we're presented with concrete, actionable intelligence on the Nigerian end, we find out about an opportunity, we do some research into it, the partner is credible, the funding is there, we think that it's going to go forward, and we think that the framework is in place to see that move, and we don't know a Canadian company. What we have is a network on the domestic end in Canada of trade commissioners who are in the various regions of Canada, who are charged with knowing the Canadian companies who have the capabilities to meet opportunities that our trade commissioners in our international network might identify. So we do a bit of sourcing in that sense. So if somebody comes to me and says the Lagos state government wants to implement potable drinking water to a number of houses across Victoria Island, we would be able to take the specs for that and then reach out to our domestic network and work with them to identify Canadian companies who would have that technology. We would engage with those companies to see if they were interested in working in Africa and specifically interested in working in Nigeria. And then we would work with the Canadian company to help them prepare to bid or connect with the right people on the ground in Nigeria to pursue that contract. We also do the opposite. So when we're approached by a Canadian company, let's say that they've got, one of the ones that we've seen is computer animation. So an educational institution comes to us and says, we have this great training program for industrial animation, and we want to train Nigerians. How would we find opportunities in Nigeria to do that? So on this end, we're able to take that information, understand the product or service that the Canadian company is offering, and then use our network to reach out and connect with the organizations on the ground here in Lagos and in Abuja, maybe Kano, to identify who we can connect that Canadian company to identify potential opportunities for their product. We will also help them work with agents, look, to see how that product would be distributed and kind of make those connections on this end. So we really work in both directions. So anybody who's in the chat kind of asking as a Canadian company what the opportunities are for you in a sector here in Nigeria, reach out to me, let me know what you do. I'll connect you with one of my trade commissioners who's an expert in your sector. They'll be able to have a conversation and work with you to kind of connect with the right people on the ground here. And for the Nigerian organizations that have a concrete, actionable opportunity, and really, we don't tend to focus on, hey, meat is a big thing in Nigeria. What can Canada do for meat? We don't do that. We would be looking for, a company wants to improve their, the diversity of their cattle genetics. Do you have Canadian companies that are able to export that product? We can work with those kind of concrete opportunities. So the more advanced, the more concrete, the more numbers and the clearer the information that we can put together from the Nigerian end allows us to kind of better source Canadian companies to kind of fulfill that. and to convince them that the opportunity is real. So that really helps us on this end. So I hope that's clear. And I'm sorry I can't speak about the specifics, but I'm hoping that that'll give a bit of a better idea of what we can do to assist.
Thank you very much. Todd, before you may weigh in on that, there's a question for you on how you identified your distributor in Nigeria. Did you make use of the Canadian Trade Commissioner service by any chance?
Yeah, you know what, I feel like I need to apologize at this stage that I didn't even mention Ryan to the trade commissioners, because normally we like to think of ourselves as a bit of a poster child for the trade commissioners because we've used them so much. So I do have some comments on the wastewater, because we actually used to be in wastewater as well. But Ryan just talked with the trade commissioners. Let me finish. Let me get to that first, then I'll talk a little bit about the wastewater afterwards. So we absolutely, I believe we did definitely utilize the trade commissioners to do some due diligence on Finaxel when we first met them. No offense, Kalechi, if you're listening, which I imagine you still are, but it's a part of our standard sort of operating practices, best practices when we have a new distributor that reaches out to us in another territory. Of course, you know, Ryan and his team are sitting there in Lagos, and we're sitting here in Canada, so they can do a much better job of assessing the companies that contact us, and this goes for anywhere in the world, not just Ryan's team in Lagos, of course. You know, they've got the boots on the ground. They can physically tell us. They can visit the office of the company. They can give us some very brief financial background information, company background information. So it really gives us like an added sort of leverage to learn more about the companies that contact us. And so Finaxel in particular, definitely, we did do a little bit of due diligence on them when they first reached out to us. And of course, we got a glowing report from the trade commissioner team, and that's why we've proceeded with the relationship with Finaxel. And I should mention, I have actually been to Nigeria a couple of times personally. The last time maybe was in 2016, something along those lines. And actually the Ryan wasn't in place there at that point in time, but we did do a Connect with Canada Day. So I think there was 2 other Canadian suppliers that just happened to be in town at the same time. And so the trade commissioners were gracious enough to invite a bunch of their contacts and host us at the High Commission, and we did a little presentation. So we got a chance to get up front and center in front of an audience there and have some conversations about our technology. So we definitely love the trade commissioners. They're like our boots on the ground. You know, before we have a distributor, they're our go-to for any information or market intelligence. So I definitely encourage anybody listening that's interested in the market to get in touch with Brian's team. Beyond that, in terms of wastewater, I should mention we actually used to be in wastewater ourselves. So we did do a small trial, I believe, at one point with, maybe it was BHP in Nigeria as a result of the Connect with Canada Day. So it just goes to show you that it pays off to work with the trade commissioners. But we just found that, you know, I don't know if anyone listening in today is a fan of Jim Collins or has read any of his books. But in his book, Good to Great, he talks a lot about only doing what you know you can be the best in the world at. And we just found that there was a lot of competition in the water space. You know, there's a lot, it's sexy to talk about water remediation, cleaning water. There's a number of technologies. There's, you know, enzymes and bacteria, which we used to be in, but there's, you know, UV and filters and this and that. And so we just felt that there's too much competition in that space, so it wasn't for us. But if you have a viable technology and you're looking to enter the Nigerian market, especially in terms of wastewater, I mean, we talked a lot about oil and gas having a big presence there. They generally have a lot of effluent that they need to treat. And you know, with Nigeria continuing to, you know, propel its economy forward and you know, adhere to more best practices that are found in other parts of the world, of course, you know, effluent quality, which is the water that flows out and flows back into the environment, is definitely going to be regulated more stringently, I believe, and therefore, you know, if you are in water treatment, I think there are some opportunities in the pipeline for you in Nigeria. It's just a matter of, you know, weeding them out and finding the ways to discover them, and of course, perfect opportunities right in front of you here with Ryan and his team. So there you go.
Fantastic. I've got a question here from Kemi. Kemi asks, how can Canadian institutions support or invest in technical and vocational education in Nigeria. He sees room for collaboration with existing educational institutions. Adeshina, may I give that question over to you? And Ryan, of course, please do weigh in once Adeshina has spoken.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I'm not sure I did justice to the last question. I thought the question was about waste to wealth. I didn't know it about, I'm happy that Ryan and Todd came to my rescue, and they did justice to that. Concerning the issue of vocational education, we have the structure is such that it depends on which area. If it's about vocational education, we have the industrial training fund that collaborate, and they collaborate with service providers. So, but right now I don't have much information about it. But if there is, since my email is going to be made available, I can do more investigation and get more information for the person who asked the question and send it across. And if there's any other thing, we can always discuss about it.
Thank you. Ryan, do you have anything, thank you, to add?
Again, it really depends. We really tend to be driven either by those opportunities or by individual requests from Canadian companies. So there is obviously space here where we have a lot of Canadian educational institutions and GVET institutions with really good programs, and then it's just a matter of finding an institution on this end with a need and the ability to pay. And around education, that does tend to kind of traditionally be the challenge, is there's kind of a need across educational institutions for this kind of collaboration and that sort of thing. But it really depends on the model on the Canadian side, whether they're doing this as outreach, whether they're doing it as a commercial venture. So we really need to work with them to identify which educational institutions on this end would be the right partners depending on what the Canadian side is looking for.
Thanks very much. I've got specific questions coming in around mining, affordable housing, as well as agriculture. But there's quite a dominant theme, and this is a broad question for each one of you, on what you're observing in terms of Canadian firms working with Nigerians in Canada when it comes to accessing the Nigerian markets and those networks that exist across the country. Specific reference in one of the questions to the diaspora more broadly. Any thoughts, and I'll kick off again with you, Adeshina, or Ryan, depending on who wants to tackle that from which vantage point. But any thoughts or case studies would be welcome. And Todd, you may have experience in your business practice on this very point.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
How do you see the role of the diaspora in Canada, of Nigerians in Canada, playing a role in working with Canadian business in coming back to Nigeria? Have you seen some success stories?
Well, I'm not sure. I cannot actually categorically say that I've seen, but what I know is that there are a lot of diasporans, Nigerian diaspora, who are already returning to Nigeria, especially in the health sector. Many have actually established hospitals, and their hospitals are doing very well. So I expect that this is one sector that I'm aware of, that we have a lot of Nigerians in diaspora who have come back home to set up very international standard hospitals, and they are doing very well.
Thank you very much.
From my side, I'd say the diaspora is incredibly important. One of the challenges that we face as the Trade Commissioner Service in Sub-Saharan Africa is outside of the extractives, specifically mining and oil and gas, Canadian companies have historically not been extremely active across Sub-Saharan Africa. So, traditionally our companies can get away with being a little bit lazier than companies in other parts of the world, because we have such an enormous market immediately to our south that speaks our language, that has a very similar culture, that's on the same time zone. And then, so once Canadian companies start exporting, they tend to go to the States, they tend to go to Latin America, the Caribbean, Western Europe, then they go to Asia, then they go to the moon, and then they come to Africa. It's really traditionally not a region that Canadian companies kind of naturally think about. And so the diaspora is hugely important in kind of galvanizing the interest of Canadians and getting them to understand why they want to work in Nigeria and why they want to work in other markets in sub-Saharan Africa. Because I found that there's no substitute for a personal testimony, a personal opinion and view of, you know, why did you go to Nigeria and how did it work out for you? Which is why I love having people like Todd on these webinars, because, you know, both Adeshina and I, we're government, we've got our specific mandates to promote trade and to do these things, but Todd's mandate is business, you know, and to hear from a company about why they chose Nigeria, how they found entering the country, and how that's kind of worked out for them and whether they would come back, whether they want to keep doing business there is really valuable. And so that's the role that the diaspora plays. In terms of the investment between the two countries, there's actually more Nigerian investment in Canada than there is investment in Nigeria, I think by at least a 2-to-1 margin at this stage. And that's a factor of the large Nigerian diaspora in Canada. Further, you look at the numbers that I talked about in terms of Nigerian students engaged in post-secondary education in Canada. 12,000 students are there right now. And one of the hallmarks of the Canadian study visa is that, generally speaking, it comes with the ability to remain in Canada and work for, I believe, up to 3 years after graduation. And then thereafter provides a pathway towards permanent residence and citizenship. And so for parents who are looking not only for an education, but international citizenship for their children, that's really important. And I do think that forms part of the decision of a lot of Nigerian parents to send their kids to Canada. What creates is that ever-growing diaspora in Canada that has potentially grown up in Nigeria, had a Canadian education, and then tends to go back and forth. We see a large number of businessmen who live in Toronto, but run businesses on both ends, and, you know, are quite profitable on both ends. The entrepreneurial spirit of Nigerians is unmatched across all of Africa. And I can say that I think I've worked across nearly 20 African countries at this point, and Nigerians are unmatched in that sense. So it's really unsurprising that the diaspora plays such an important role in driving that trade and investment relationship. And we're really focused on working with them to kind of continue to grow on that.
Thank you very much. And a lot of great comments coming in from across Canada, specifically related to the role of the Nigeria Investment and Promotion Commission, as you've outlined, Adesina. I think post-COVID, a lot of people here would look forward to seeing you or your colleagues in Canada. That's very evident. So thank you for sharing and for serving as a gateway into the market. Question around affordable housing, that was touched on in your first presentation. Any particular thoughts on what is the rent-to-own model? Martin Ochang is asking about that sector and whether the rent-to-own model is an opportunity that you see in Nigeria for Canadian investors.
Well, the rent-to-own model is still very new in Nigeria. What we used to have is people, you build house and you sell and you pay cash. And the government has, the mortgage system is working now. And so government is encouraging mass housing, and then so that people can access mortgage to be able, you know, to buy the houses once you have a steady source of income. Well, I'm aware that of recent government put in Abuja particularly, there is a scheme that is called, I know the acronym is FISH or something, but I can't really recall the full meaning, but it's a scheme that is designed to provide houses for low-income earners to be able to, you know, rent the house and own it. That is still a new scheme. I don't really have much information on how successful it has been, but what I know is that government is encouraging mass housing, especially for low-income earners, and then those who can afford to, you know, access mortgage. But for those who cannot afford mortgage, the government is trying to put in some other schemes, which I'm not too sure it is as matured to the extent that I can talk about its success.
Thank you very much. A question specifically related to agriculture and irrigation. Ryan, again, is this an area that you're aware of as opportunity in Nigeria? I'm aware, of course, of the other webinar that is taking place, but any thoughts on that in particular?
So agriculture is a new sector for us. It's historically not been one that we've spent a lot of time on. But over the last year, we've started to focus on it more and more. We've seen a strong move within Nigeria to grow indigenous capacity to produce and kind of meet its own food needs. And so obviously we do expect to see this translating into significant development in the agricultural sector. So I don't know of any specific opportunities, but we're definitely looking at the sector, and that would be one of the kind of subsectors that would be of significant interest to us.
Fantastic. And of course, noting the more someone comes to you with a clear, tangible project or an outline, you're immediately able to go get very specific answers and make those connections, which is fantastic. A quick note to leadership and governance as well for their role, promoting investment from Canada to Nigeria. We had the summit last year for 2 days in Toronto. So Sam and Kola, a big recognition to you, of course, for that. And then just on this issue of water, the seminar that's taking place, there's still an opportunity as we begin to wrap up this session to join in on that webinar. So I've just sent through the details in response to Brian Dodo's question. So feel free to click that as we start to wrap up this event. I think you'll be able to get some information and pose those questions here. I see your schedule is unbelievably busy for each one of you on this panel. So thank you for the time you've made to engage with all of us here. I'm going to ask, as we wrap up, for a quick 30-second summary. And I'm going to pass the ball to Todd and ask specifically in your summary, Todd, what the biggest misconception or surprise has been to Canadian businesses such as yourselves and others you speak to when it comes to Nigeria, be it the market size, be it scale of implementation, whatever you found in the course of doing business. So if I may go in the order with which each of you spoke today, starting with you, Adesina, then through to Ryan, and concluding with you, Todd.
Thank you very much. There's no denying the fact that it is difficult to do business in Nigeria. There's no denying the fact that corruption is still an issue in Nigeria. But there's also not denying the fact that government has done a lot and is doing a lot to address these issues that have been discouraging investment in Nigeria. We know I don't know how many people are aware that just recently, even the acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crime Commission was arrested, and so that sends a message that nobody is immune to this fight against corruption. And then government has also done enough to improve the investment environment. And I want to assure investors that government will continue to do its best to improve. We know we are not yet where we want to be, but we are not where we used to be. And though there are challenges, but these challenges also offer opportunities. And I want investors to focus more on the opportunities. And as you focus on the opportunities, the challenges will be overcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ryan.
Sure. So we've actually had 2 of our most successful years as the Trade Commissioner Service in Nigeria over the last 2 years. And I think a lot of that success comes from being really realistic about what Canada is in Nigeria. We're not the US, we're not the UK. We're not here to build bridges, build entire airports, build entire cities. What we have is innovative, agile, flexible companies with really interesting solutions that other companies just don't have. And I think that we really want to take advantage of those technologies, those solutions, and help Canadian companies to find the right partners on this end. As Adesina mentioned, the Nigerian market can be really challenging, and it's even more challenging if you kind of come into it blind and come into it all alone. And so that's really what the Trade Commissioner Service offers. Like, companies on the SME side don't have enormous marketing budgets, don't have the money to have, a 5-10 person office here in Lagos, but we can be that 5-10 person office and provide the support that companies need, to enter the market and to be successful.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And final word to you, Todd, as we wrap up.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks again to everyone for joining us today. And just to build on Adesina's comments, I think maybe this isn't correct currently, but maybe 10, 20 years ago, Nigeria was sort of thought as the scamming capital of the world. I'm sure everyone has got an email saying, I'm the former, the daughter of the prince of this and that, and send me your bank details and I'll send you $1 million or something like that. And so I think Nigeria is sort of generally was thought of previously as a, just sort of a, no holds barred, anything goes type of country. But I think at this stage, and as a result, I think there's a lot of companies that aren't willing to take a risk to go in there, and they don't realize that it actually is it's a growing market. There's a huge opportunity there. And I mean, so therefore to finish on that, the rewards are great because there's not a lot of people that are going after the market. And something else, just a barrier sometimes to doing business is language. And I think there's several national languages in Nigeria, but I think that it's pretty common that almost everybody speaks English. And so, as an exporter, we always appreciate the ability to communicate in our native language. We're very fortunate that almost everywhere in the world you find somebody who speaks English, but it always helps in terms of ease of market entry, entering a new market where the people actually speak the same language as you and you don't have to do it through a translator. So something to certainly keep in mind.
Well, fantastic. I want to thank each one of our panelists here today, as well as to those who are making this possible, Global Affairs, to you, Todd, and to your firm leading the way, showing business what is possible in Nigeria, to the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission. And then, of course, we couldn't have done this without MineAfrica, Leadership and Governance Canada, and the Schulich Executive Education Centre. Thank you for putting us together, and we certainly look forward to the next session. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon or evening wherever you are in Canada or across Africa. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.